Thank you. Welcome, everybody, to the Board of Selectmen meeting, May 26, 2020. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic,
United States of America, and to the
one
republic
nation,
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First on the agenda is public announcements. I know there's not much going on, but I'll go down and ask everybody if they have any announcements. Kevin?
Yeah, I just want to again announce Abington Strong Foundation. They have lawn signs for sale, one-sided and two-sided lawn signs. They have decals and magnets. Your magnet and your decals. Decals are on sale at Sub Galley as well. But great thing started to help out the Abington Food Pantry. If you're interested, go on to Abington Strong, look online for them, or stop by the Sub Galley and buy a decal. The one-sided signs are $20. Two-sided signs are $22. Decals are $8 and magnets are $10. And all proceeds go to the Abington Food Pantry.
Thank you. Jim?
I'm all set. He took it.
Ken?
Just want to tell everybody about the library. Is starting kind of a cool new program, drive up, pick up, and you can drop off books. I think you just have to phone them or contact their website. I know that Channel 4 was actually there filming it because it's an innovative program, so kudos to them. And so we're going to talk about, I don't have it in front of me, the absentee ballots that we talked about. Jim, do you have that information from last week about how to apply?
Yeah, I can put that out.
Yeah, I'll cover that when we go down to the about town
Some
hall.
info too.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Okay, first action discussion item was the vote to approve the minutes on, for the meeting May 18th. So take a look at the minutes. I'll entertain a motion when somebody's ready.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes of May 18th as written.
Second.
Motioned and seconded. Does anybody have any discussion? All in favor to approve the minutes of May 18th, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay, number 2, discuss request by town clerk to adjust the hours of the town election to 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. rather than 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. So this is something we discussed at our last meeting. We kind of had Leanne on speakerphone. It was a little messy on what we could hear and what we couldn't. We did receive some stuff in our packet. So does anybody have any further discussion on that possibility?
Just to give you an update on that, also, I know we had talked about the ability to come in and vote. So town hall is open now. So there is voting. The people are welcome to come in. We're open 8:30 to 4:30, and the absentee ballots are in, so they can come in. They can get an absentee ballot. They can fill it in, vote, and turn it in right there at town hall right now. At this point, she's already processed over 100 of them, where at this time last year, they had only done about 54. So it's, it's pretty easy. Leanne had sent me over just a couple of bullet points on it saying you can get the application on the website, you come to the front door or go right to the town clerk's office, and just anything with the signature requesting one will work. Once they have the request and you're eligible to vote and it's confirmed, they'll send you a ballot, or if you come into town hall, they'll give you the ballot right then and there. Either way, whatever you folks decide tonight, I need you to stop by Leanne's office over the next day or so to sign the election warrant. Okay. So she has 2 of them there all ready to go. One says, she's got them all set up for whatever time you choose. Whatever time you vote
those
on.
are in the town clerk's office, Scott?
Yes.
Okay. So do we have to go show up there during her hours?
If you can't, let me know and I'll make arrangements so that you know, if she has to leave it up in my office, you guys have the key upstairs. So, well, if that works out easier, I'll let her know.
Okay.
What are her hours?
The town hall, she's in there 8:30 to 4:30. There's someone in the office all day.
Okay. I can make that.
I did stop in today, talked to Leanne about a little bit, and got some clarification. I know we had talked about early voting, absentee voting last time. She had informed me early voting has been for state and federal elections. It was never offered on the town level. Due to coronavirus, Secretary Galvin has authorized, it's called early voting by mail. But what Leanne, the town clerk, did say is there's some applications at the door. You can go to the town clerk's office, and then there are a couple options if you want absentee ballot, if you want to early vote by mail. You fill out a form while you're there. They check a few things in the computer, and then you can vote. So just want to know that is an option. Get some clarity on it as well.
Do you know if they're gonna be open a couple nights to make it easier to vote there, or is there plans in the next month or so to do that, do you know?
Really, it hasn't come up. I don't know. I'm certain.
I know she had evening hours for the presidential election and other
Yeah.
elections. I just wonder if she's gonna do it for this, that's all.
I can ask her. I certainly could put it out there. I don't know if that was something that anybody had contemplated.
That might be a good thing for people that, because more people are going back to work, so it might be a good thing. Even Tim just mentioned, we have to get into the town hall after it's closed because, I can't get there during the day, so it might be a good option, just a couple nights, that's all.
Yeah, I'll ask her about it in the morning.
As far as the hours of the election go, I would have no problem with the shortening it 10 to 6 if it was on a Saturday, but if it was on a Saturday, but since it's on a Tuesday, I'd like to, and I understand that the concern the night before is the town meeting, or maybe the town meeting. I would like a nice compromise and say 7 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock, keeping you open an extra hour. That would be my motion.
So
So I can have a purpose
clarification,
of discussion.
your motion is to open the town election hours from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m.
10 to 7,
From 10 a.m. to 7 p.m.
correct.
And Jim, you seconded that?
I second that.
Okay, so now discussion.
Yeah, I like the 7 o'clock time. My point of view is if you're not going to open at 8 o'clock, you're going to lose the early morning commute into work. 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, I don't think it would matter. If you want to start at 10, that's fine with me, but I was going to suggest maybe 11 to 7. I just throw that out there and see what people have to say.
Well, Jim, I'm sorry, I missed you. What was your reasoning behind 11 instead of 10?
Well, you've already lost the early morning commuters going into work if you're not going to open up at 8. So I think 10 o'clock, it doesn't matter whether you open up at 10 or 11. The idea is to minimize the amount of time that the workers are exposed to the public.
Well, I agree with that, but I would say then minimize the amount of work is the amount of time that they work there. Don't minimize the amount of time that the citizens can vote. If we have to do it in shifts, if we have to recruit volunteers, whatever we need to do, if they only feel safe working 4 or 5 hour shifts, we can do 2 shifts. But I really don't like any motion that's going to limit the hours of voting. It's always been 8 to 6. I think the residents are accustomed to knowing that those are the hours. I would say I would be open if anybody wanted to extend it from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and we split the workers up into shifts. But I'm not going to vote for any motion that restricts it any further.
We're throwing hours all over the place here. I think we keep it simple. I want to keep it just 8 to 6. I think we keep it either 8 to 6 or what the town clerk. I mean, rather than going changing hours on either end of it, and it's going to be way too confusing. It's already on a Tuesday, not a Saturday. Let's stick to one of these 2 hours, I would say.
I'm just worried that people getting out of work at 5 o'clock, work in Boston, you're giving them an hour to get there. I agree with the 7 o'clock. And I'm not too hung up on the 11 o'clock. I would agree with Ken, the 10 to 7.
You know, Jim, they do have absentee voting and they have early voting. So, I mean, they have 2 avenues. You know, I would like to keep the hours exactly the same, and that way they have 3 different options. I think that, you know.
When you say exactly the same, you don't mean what they always used to be for town elections. You mean what Leanne is proposing.
The 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., yeah.
Oh, 8 to 6.
Yep, not the revised.
Not the 10 to 6, the 8 to 6.
Correct.
I just again, I think on a Tuesday rather than a Saturday, we should keep it a little open, a little extra, like you know, Jim's reasoning, you know, till 7. You know, if you want to make it, and I don't want to extend the hours any more than a normal election day. So if you want to make it, and I'll throw another one out there. If you want to make it 9 to 7, you know, I don't know. Just
I still think you lost the 8 o'clock crowd, the early commuters. You know, I used to go in, even on a Saturday, I'm headed into work. I could call my boss and say, I'm going to be a few minutes late. I got to vote at 8 o'clock.
No,
There's no way I can say, I'm going to be 3 hours late. I got to vote at 10.
I mean, it's unfortunate. I don't know how many people are going to be back to work by then as well. So, but I don't know. I mean, I agree with you at being on a Tuesday. If you were to go later, I mean, how many? We really don't have numbers, statistics on how many people that will affect. You know, staying another hour on either end.
I think we need Tom to show up quick.
Leanne did say that 2017 we had 1,310 voters and 97 absentee. 2018 we had 1,471 and 112 absentee, and then last year we had 909 with 54 absentee. So if we're already up over 100 or around there with 4 weeks to go to the election, we could possibly see a couple hundred people vote absentee or early vote. So that might compensate for time if we're looking for that extra hour at night or whatnot.
Any other discussion? Okay, so the motion on the floor is to change the election hours from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Motion was made by Ken and seconded by Jim. All in favor of passing that motion? All in favor of not passing that? All
Aye.
not in favor? Aye.
All those opposed.
So 2-2, the motion doesn't pass. That was not unanimous, so just keep in mind that we can reconsider that later in the meeting should something change. On to our next item for business was
Mr.
discussion of town meeting. Go ahead,
Chairman.
Ken.
So that means that the normal hours of, we haven't voted or anything, so they would stand, the normal election hours would stand as they normally are on a regular town election, which is 8 to
8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Unless somebody else has another motion they
Okay,
want.
no, I just wanted to make sure that it was clear. It's not going to be 10 to 6. It's going to be 8 to 6 unless, you know, something else changes.
Okay. It will stay the standard 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay.
So discussion of town meeting and budget consideration for reducing quorum number. Scott, did you want to start us off on this one?
Yeah, Sean, you're on, right?
I'm on.
Okay, good. So we did get an update today as far as the quorum reduction rule goes. It does look like it finally made its way out of House Ways and Means Committee, and it should be signed by the end of the week. That being said, that will allow us to do something. I think what we'll have to do is we'll have to post a notice of your intention to have a vote to reduce the quorum number, if you so decide to do that. We would be able to post that notice tomorrow, and you would be able to vote on it on June 8th. So I think currently our plan will be to stick with the dates that we have in front of us that we've discussed for the 22nd. We'll have it at the high school. We can easily fit comfortably and safely, I think, up to 70 people in there. Spread out quite a bit. The warrant will be pared down to budget items and capital items and only items that we absolutely have to take action on. You won't see any of the zoning stuff in there or any of the planning articles except for the flood map FEMA article. So I think that's our plan. We'd like to go forward with that. And Sean, you want to maybe fill in some of the blanks there? I know that we had kind of kicked around some of the other options and possibilities.
For those of you who don't know me in Zoom land, my name is Sean Riley. I'm your town moderator. So the selectmen, as you know, have already previously postponed town meeting to a date to be determined. And Monday, June 22nd is the target date right now, because I believe that's when town council is available. So one of the votes that the Board of Health has to do is to formally declare that the date of town meeting and sign a warrant, issue the warrant, much like you have to issue a warrant for the town elections. I did write out a few things because I didn't want to overlook. There's a lot of balls in the air, and I want to thank Scott Lambiase and Leanne Adams, our town clerk, and Marty Golightly, our Board of Health agent. We've been talking almost every other day. I just want to make a couple things clear. The governor's order back on March 13th, which prohibited social gatherings, listed certain exceptions, and one of them was municipal legislative bodies, which is town meeting. So technically, it's legal to have a town meeting. It doesn't violate the governor's order. However, we have to comply with public health guidelines and requirements. So we recently had a meeting at the high school auditorium with Scott and myself and the town clerk and the health agent, the town accountant, and the school custodial director. And we tried to imagine what our issues would be and how could we safely do this. And again, they've been great to work with. We've also kept our public safety departments up to date. I've been emailing with Chief Majensky from the police and Chief Nuttall from the fire department. So initially, our biggest hurdle was how to safely hold a town meeting with 150 or more people, because our quorum is typically 150, while also maintaining 6 feet between voters during the registration process, while they're seated in the auditorium, and even as you exit the building. The good news is that, as Scott just mentioned, the Mass Moderators Association and the Mass Municipal Association were instrumental in pushing special emergency legislation, which would allow local boards of selectmen, in consultation and approval of the town moderator, to temporarily decrease the town meeting quorum while the COVID-19 public health emergency is in effect. So for many towns around us with a zero quorum, they're not as worried about whether they can actually have it and hold the town meeting, and they didn't have to worry about how to spread out 150 people. But now that the state Senate and the House have approved the legislation, there's actually a tweak that was made. So it's going to be going back to the Senate for a brief vote, back to the House for a brief vote, and then to the governor. We all hope that that gets done potentially by this Friday. But if not, I'm hearing from one moderator who's also a state rep that they think it'll be done, if not this Friday, next week. That's huge because it gives Abington and other towns like Pembroke has 150, some wiggle room now. How can we safely convene a town meeting? And to answer one other question that's been out there, no, you can't have a Zoom meeting for town meeting with 150 residents. It's actually not allowed by law for an open town meeting like Abington. If you had a representative town meeting, you could do it, but not with an open town meeting. So what the pending legislation does is it allows the Board of Selectmen to vote for a temporary reduction in the quorum down to as low as 10% of the actual quorum. So you could vote to reduce the quorum down to 15 voters. I'm recommending that you schedule a vote at one of your upcoming meetings because the statute says you have to give 7 days notice of your intent to take the vote. and reduce the quorum down to, I would say, 25. To be clear, that doesn't prevent anyone from attending the meeting. It doesn't create a cap on the number of people, but any registered voter who wants to attend the meeting can come, and they're welcome and encouraged to attend. But what the temporary reduced quorum does, it allows voters to know that the town meeting will start promptly on time. So voters will not be asked or expected to wait around in the auditorium for 30 or 45 minutes while we all wait to see if 150 people will bother to show up and get checked in. We don't want people contained in the room together for any longer than we need to. So by enacting a lower quorum, the legislation also triggers the requirement that the town meeting can only act on the town budget-related articles and federally mandated articles, which we have one, like every other town has one about the FEMA flood maps. So the intent is to shrink the amount of articles on the warrant and to shorten the length of the meeting, thus reducing the risk of any potential exposure into of the virus, which we know is COVID-19. Our priorities are always going to be the safety and the health of everyone who desires to attend the town meeting, and the need to approve certain articles to allow our town to pass the FY21 budget so that the town can operate as efficiently as possible, especially during the ongoing pandemic. So to ensure the safety and to minimize the risk of exposure, we have to assume that everyone in attendance is asymptomatic, or in other words, we have to assume that the person next to you has the virus and just doesn't know it, and that he or she is contagious. It's tough to say, but that's the way we have to treat this so that everyone feels secure. Public health authorities have recommended that 2 precautions that we as a community should put in place to decrease risks to our voters who would gather together. Number 1, maintain a safe distance between people throughout the entire meeting. Number 2, minimize the amount of time spent with a large group of people in an enclosed room like the auditorium. So at this time, if the selectmen were to vote to hold the town meeting at the auditorium on June 22nd and to vote to lower the quorum, we plan to implement the following procedures and requirements. Now, some of these might be changed and tweaked as we get more information from our public safety and public health officials. Number 1, all voters and volunteers will have their temperature checked before they enter the school building. Residents who have any symptoms of the virus, who have been recently exposed or simply don't feel well, are going to be asked, they're not going to be allowed in the building, they're going to be asked to stay home for their own safety and for the safety of the community. Number 2, typically a lot of our boards and committees have their own private meetings in classrooms before the actual town meeting starts. For this town meeting, no classrooms are going to be available for those type of meetings because we want to minimize the areas of the school that we have to decontaminate or disinfect after town meeting. The auditorium itself will be disinfected before town meeting, and it will also be disinfected again after town meeting. Number 3, masks are going to be required to be worn by everyone in attendance at town meeting per public health authorities. Anyone with a justifiable medical reason not to wear a mask will be asked to sit in a segregated area for their protection and for the safety of others in attendance. Number 4, with a lower quorum, we can be assured again that town meeting will start at 7 o'clock or immediately thereafter. We ask voters to arrive 30 minutes early, check themselves in, keep social distancing while they're in line, and then you'll be ushered to the auditorium to find an available seat. To follow social distancing, safety, and seating standards, we're going to require 3 vacant seats between each voter and 2 vacant rows between each voter. We will only make exceptions for people who live in the same household, such as a husband and wife. So if a husband and wife wants to sit next to each other, they can do so, but they must also keep 3 vacant seats between themselves and the next voter. And number 5, as Scott mentioned, a reduced warrant. The legislation says if you elect to exercise the low quorum, then you have to restrict the types of articles that you're going to deal with, which benefits everyone. So it'll be budget-related, and federally mandated articles. With the help of the town manager, the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, we'll make every effort to make the meeting run as short and as efficiently as possible to minimize the amount of time we'll share in the auditorium. Luckily, it's a large space. And also, the auditorium is equipped with a state-of-the-art air conditioning system, which will constantly feed fresh air and circulate fresh air into the space throughout the meeting. That was a question that we've already received. Kevin Tachi of Abington CAM and Town Manager Scott Lambiase, Finance Committee Matt Chair, we're all going to try to, the 4 of us going to try to get together and tape an informational cable TV show before the town meeting, where we'll go over each of the articles, explain what they're all about. We're going to go over some of the details that I just mentioned, and probably more so that people know what to expect when they get to the town meeting, so that we can kind of get in and get out. I don't want to rush the town meeting, but I want it to be efficient so people know that the town of Abington, the Board of Selectmen, really were prepared for this town meeting, even during a pandemic. Town meeting is typically a time for our community to come together and act for the benefit of our community. We will make every effort to ensure that the residents are informed, that they're heard, and that they are safe, and that we as a town will move forward into this summer and fall as a united and a supportive community. Sorry, but I wanted to put that all together and get that out there. I'm hoping the other option is, if the Board of Selectmen would like to, the safest meeting is a reduced quorum in an outdoor area. Some towns, local towns, are having outdoor meetings. That, of course, is you're subject to the weather. If the board wants to, you could take a vote to declare the town meeting to be Saturday, June 27th, I think it is. We would recommend doing it on the front lawn of the high school. The Frollo was an option at the Memorial Field, but there's some ADA issues there and some difficulty with parking. But if you do choose to stay in the auditorium, I will follow the guidance of our public health authorities, and we think we can hold a safe meeting there. If using those restricted seating arrangements, we have more people that show up than expected, we will have an overflow seating in the gymnasium where they'll be able to hear what's going on in the town meeting. But with your help and everyone else's help, I think we can do this. I think we can do it safely, and we can get the budget approved. And then sometime in the fall, the Board of Selectmen can schedule a special town meeting to handle whatever other issues might come up.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Sean?
What are you recommending for a quorum?
I've recommended 25. I mean, honestly, you can go as low as 15, 25, 50. It's all the same. I'm sure there's a certain element of our community who are not going to come because they're very nervous about being exposed. There's a certain element of our community who's going to come if it's pouring out, they're going to be there. As I said, whether you set it at 15, 25, or 50, we may have 60 people, we may have 160 people. We don't know. It's hard. We have to plan for the overflow. But our best guess is, given the scenario and given the concerns, we have mapped out the auditorium. I don't know if you saw the email that was forwarded to you, but we actually drew a map. The selectmen will be assigned seating up in the front, along with the finance committee. And then by putting people every 3 seats, we have room for about another 70 or so voters. So we'd have about 85 people in the gymnasium. In the auditorium. If we did similar seating in the gymnasium, we could probably fit another 60 to 70. And if at any time we believe that there are too many people, if we ever went over 150, I'd actually have to adjourn the meeting and we would have to go outside. If this lower quorum legislation doesn't pass, or we think it will, but if it doesn't pass and we have to maintain 150 quorum, Marty Golightly and I have already decided that we can't allow an indoor meeting with that size crowd. It's just too risky. We would have to have an outdoor meeting on the front lawn. But now, based on the information we just got from the House of Representatives today, it appears likely, if not definitely, that they will vote soon to allow towns like Abington to lower the quorum so you can have a town meeting and convene it for the budget purposes and for the FEMA purposes.
For quorum purposes, the Finance Committee and Board of Selectmen are counted as quorum, right?
They are.
So that
those
if we
of you
go to
show up-
15, that could fill it right there, huh?
If you have all 9 members of the Finance Committee and the 5 members of the Board of Selectmen, you've got 14.
And the moderator.
And me, although I can't vote at town meeting unless it's a tie. Hopefully there's never a tie. So that's why I said 25. I mean, we're not looking to push anything by here. That's why you're limited to what you can do on your warrant. That's why we want to have the cable TV show to explain what's going to be. And I'm going to be talking more with the town manager and Kevin Tachi about potentially seeing if it's worthy, should we go live on cable TV so those people who can't go or are nervous about going can at least watch it. I don't expect it to be a long meeting because of the limited warrant. But it is something that we would, the town needs to approve a budget to move forward for the next fiscal year.
It would be comfortable if we had citizens equal the amount of Finance Committee and Selectmen and moderator. So taking that in consideration, I think 30 would be a great number for a quorum.
I'm interested to hear all the board's thoughts because, as I said, you can't vote on it tonight.
Right.
You'd have to put 7-day notice. But if you guys want to throw out your ideas, I'm willing. I want to work with you so we can get this done as safely as possible.
What would the overflow in the gym be? In the auditorium would be on the projector. how would you get it in the gym? Would there be a projector or?
That's what we're working out. There might be some large televisions. By law, they're required to just have audio connections so they can
Okay.
hear what's going on. I'm not even sure. We probably will use the projector in the auditorium for this meeting. We've used it in the last, I think, 2 years. But if there is an overflow, at a minimum, there'll be a audio connection, but I think we will also have some sort of visual or video connection.
And I know you talked about you couldn't use the classrooms, but each classroom has a smart board in it. Wouldn't we be able to project it almost into every classroom when they all have phones, so we could have, I would be more people. But what was the thought behind that? Trying
Not to infect the school, multiple areas of the school. We want to restrict access to different parts of the building. Sad to say, with a quorum of 150, as you guys have all known, there's been times where we have to wait for 150 people to show up. Given the scenario, I'm not sure that if we tried to hold a meeting with 150 people, if 150 people would show up. I'd like to say that they would, but we don't know. And what I don't want to have happen, the worst case scenario for us, is to have 120 people show up and sit in the auditorium for 45 minutes and then say, sorry, folks, you got to go home. We're going to do this all over again another time. And as we mentioned, I can tell you already, if the quorum is not lowered, we cannot proceed with a indoor town meeting with 150 minimum people. It's just not safe.
And still lowering the quorum, we could put it at 25. I mean, we could still have 70 show
Right.
up and participate. It's just 25 is the number to start it.
That's
that
right.
will be the number. Okay.
That's right. And we'd be encouraging people to arrive early. As I said, arrive 30 minutes early so you can be in your seat ready to go at 7 o'clock. And, the beginning of the meeting is always, even my introductory statements are going to be abbreviated. We're going to try to get right to the meat of the matter so that people feel that it was a very efficient meeting. If people, obviously, we're not going to shut off debate or anything unless it gets repetitive. We'll have the meeting go 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, depending on what people want to discuss.
And John, like you said, we haven't hit the numbers really. It's tough to get to 150, but in the chance that we go north of 70 or we capacity in the auditorium and the gym, are people going to be turned away and told to watch live on TV, or what's a plan for that?
For any town meeting, if there's not enough seating in the auditorium or in any overflow room that doesn't have an audio connection, I would have to recess the town meeting until we could reschedule and provide a bigger area to meet. A couple, like Hull is doing theirs on their football field. East Bridgewater currently is doing it in their auditorium, but they have a 0 quorum, so they know they're going to start no matter how many people show up. But every town has a different number of voters, a different size auditorium, and a different quorum. This emergency legislation was to allow flexibility for towns so that you could at least convene a meeting to get the budget passed.
Regardless of how small the quorum would be, if we hit that capacity number, we would still have to recess, or you would still recess it, right?
Like, yeah, if a voter's turned away because there's not enough room, I have to recess the meeting. Every voter is entitled to take part.
Understandable. I like the idea of airing it live on TV as well. I think that would be a good, replacement, so to speak, if we do lower.
Typically, we don't go live because we want to encourage people to come to the meeting. But
True.
In this case, during a pandemic, this may be a reason why we probably should go live.
And again, we fully intend to spend a lot of time getting this information out as soon as we've made the decision. We want to get the budget out to everybody, let them know exactly what's in it, what we're doing, what the capital items are, et cetera. So everybody knows well in advance, what the plan is, and then they can all make their own decision on whether they want to.
And like, if I could say, like any other town meeting, if your board takes the vote on Monday night, June 1st, to have town meeting on June 22nd at the auditorium, then you have to send out the warrant 14 days before the meeting, because there's a special town meeting involved. annual town meetings require a 7-day warrant notice. But because we have a special town meeting traditionally at the very beginning, you have to send everything out 14 days. So the warrant will be available to the general public 2 weeks before the town meeting. It'll be at the town clerk's office. I'm sure it'll be posted online. Postcards get mailed out to every voter to remind them how they can get the warrant. And then we'll also have warrants available at the meeting itself. In addition to the ongoing finance committee meetings and the ongoing selectmen's meetings, which are very helpful that they're still online because people can follow along, and the meeting that we hope to put together with Abington Cam specifically about this town meeting.
Right, Mr. Chairman, through you to Sean. Sean, I came in a little late. I apologize. I had trouble with my computer. Did you say we can't vote on it tonight?
Right. The statute hasn't been passed into law yet. It's looks like it's going to be done, if not the end of this week, the governor will sign it, or the beginning of the week. So you can't vote till after the governor signs it. But in the legislation itself, it also says the selectmen must post a notice of their intent to take such a vote 7 days before the vote. So, you could put a notice on June 1st that you plan on voting to reduce the quorum on June 8th.
And then you run into the problem of the 2-week notice for the special town meeting.
No, you can still set up the town meeting on June 1st. And when you do, at that point in time, the quorum is 150. But then the selectmen can take a vote as soon as after that legislation is enacted to reduce the quorum to allow it to proceed. So let's say worst case scenario, June 1st, you guys declare June 22nd is our meeting. Part of the emergency pandemic legislation allows a moderator to postpone a town meeting during a public health emergency if there's a concern about any sort of health issues, public health emergencies, or the safety of the public. So if the quorum had not been reduced, or let's say, for example, you guys vote not to reduce the quorum, I would recess the meeting from the auditorium and reschedule it to an outdoor meeting somewhere else. I don't think I'm going to need to do that. I don't want to do that. I'd like you guys to make a decision as a board, but you can make the decision to lower the quorum after the decision to issue the warrant. Because the warrant doesn't mention the quorum.
Gotcha.
Thanks, Sean.
Anything else for Sean? Okay, so do we want to do a motion to make our intent to vote on this next week, or do we just want to put that on next week's agenda? Does that count?
So yeah, next week's agenda will have, you'll be review and sign the warrants for the special and for the town meeting. Well, I will post in the meantime, whatever is required to post and notice for the June 8th meeting to take the vote on the quorum. So you don't really have to vote on anything tonight. But you will on the 1st and on the 8th.
Okay.
The only thing I would need to know, I guess we don't even know it tonight, but the way the legislation's written is the selectmen take the vote with the consultation and approval of the town moderator. So we'd all just have to agree on a number. So I had mentioned 25, Jim mentioned 30. If anyone has any strong feelings, let me know. And I'd like you guys to, I'll try to put it in writing, my consent before your June 8th meeting so that we can move forward. Okay?
Well, I have strong feelings. I'm just concerned that I don't want to discourage people from going to the town meeting.
Nor do I. And that's why we want to have all these safety precautions in there. The more voices, the more opinions, the better the town meeting. But in this day and age, it has to be safe. Because we have to take care of the people who are concerned about their safety, especially as a lot of our town regular town meeting attendees are older residents.
Yeah.
So I want all of them to feel comfortable and confident that they can go and that we are taking care of them. And if we end up with 60 people or 160 people, we'll do our best. If we go over the 150, we're not going to be able to fit them. We'll make that happen. We'll have the first ever outdoor town meeting on the lawn in front of the high school.
Right, but no matter what the quorum is, if you have over 150, you're going to run into that same problem. So no matter if the quorum is 0, well, it has to be 15. But I just want to commend you too, Sean. I mean, the diagram you guys did, you and the Board of Health, and I'm sure Leanne was involved in that, Scott. I mean, all the work you've done. One of the times I ran for selectman, don't ask me which time, one of the questions was, and you probably remember this, Sean, but there was talk about lowering the quorum, and I came before town meeting. And that was a good question, actually, but I weighed in and said, I don't think we should lower the quorum. You know, it's a tough, it sucks waiting for other people to show up. But in this case, I mean, you kind of have to. But I would like to see a number that there's no question. In other words, if it's 15, then people are going to question it afterwards. If there's 30, or they invited their friends, I mean, I did see a number that's like about, I'm thinking about a 50-person range. That would be my thought. At least, you know, and also publicize it and not discourage it. And if you run into 150, which we're not, but if you do, then, you know, you run into 150.
Right.
So my thoughts of 50 people, at least that way it's more representative of the whole town rather than just the 15 members of this. So that's all.
I'm on the same page. The reason I said 30 is I just want to see as many citizens, equal amount of citizens as people on the finance committee or board of selectmen. The same reason Ken said, I don't want people to say, oh, they had 15 and it was the politicians who decided what goes on. I just want to make sure that the citizens have their say, at least an equal amount of say.
Ironically, of the towns around us that have gone to a zero quorum, they found higher attendance because people know the meeting's going to start on time. And there's a certain element who doesn't want a small group to make a decision. So it ends up that more people do show up. Now, that begs the question, well, then how do we reduce our 150 quorum? We can't take that vote during the reduced quorum. It would have to be at a future town meeting. When there was 150 people there, they could vote to reduce the quorum for future town meetings. I think, Ken, you might remember a couple of years ago, there was a proposal to reduce it to 50 or 75 and it lost by 3 votes.
Yep.
Sean, doesn't that have to be in the charter or the bylaws?
It's part of our bylaws, so it would be a vote to change the bylaw at a future town meeting.
Which is a committee they're going to put me on, I keep hearing, so.
That's the charter committee. That's different.
That's charter committee is done on every year ending in 4, so you're going to have to stick around for a couple more years.
I'll be here.
So I appreciate, if you guys want to talk to people, shoot me an email. If 30 is the number, 50 is the number, let me know, and I will try to work with you so that we can move forward. I'd like to get this town meeting done as safely and efficiently as possible. Those are our key words, basically. I think it can be done, and I want to thank Chief Nuttall for helping out. I've been bouncing a few things off of him because we'll probably be relying on Derek and some of the guys in the department to help with checking temperatures. Some of our EMTs will be there to help us make sure everyone's safe and sound.
Thank you.
All set?
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Sean.
I'm going to zoom out.
Thanks, Sean.
So next item on the agenda is update on the fire station feasibility study. I don't know if Derek, Chief Nuttall, or Scott, who wants to start on this one?
Definitely.
So Derek, you're the chairman of that committee. Why don't you go ahead and update us?
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me on. And Scott, it's nice to meet you. Welcome to the town. My name is Derek Hamadi. I'm the chairman of the fire station committee. I'm also a firefighter paramedic in the town of Abington. And we just recently got the feasibility study finished. We just got it just over a week ago. It's a large document. It's almost 300 pages long. The committee had spent almost a week reading through it, and we convened last Wednesday at a Zoom meeting, and we were able to discuss and go over a good amount of the study, but there's a lot in there that still needs to be looked at. But we wanted to come up and present to you the study altogether, and tell you a little bit about what showed up on it. I know we sent out a feasibility study to everybody on the board, and Scott as well. Did you guys all get a chance to at least take a look at that?
Yep.
Yes.
Great. So as you can tell, it's a lot of information, and ultimately what we wanted to do is the study pointed out a couple of locations in town of where a new fire station could be done. built. The study itself was done just to find out if there was any sense in trying to rehab or redo the stations we had, if there was potential there to fix them so we can grow into them. But the study ultimately decided that that there's not enough space in the buildings that we currently have, and we need to move toward looking toward getting a new fire station built. The study pointed out that a central fire station would be more feasible than trying to build multiple fire stations. And then it came down to locations, and they looked through several different locations in town, and due to the size constraints of a lot of the open available areas in town, they decided to finalize a couple locations. They chose the North School location, and then they chose the Glenowitz Way location, which is across from the high school. If you're going down Glenowitz Way, it's on the left-hand side. So those two sites were the sites that they did the study on. They worked on a concept version of what the station would look like. There was a lot of work put into that, a lot of effort from members of the fire department. A lot of input went into the architect that helped design the layout, and then the company that actually did the feasibility study, KBA, came up ultimately with a conceptual building layout design, and then they placed that right on the two sites to see how it would fit. They also brought out different projected cost points. The chief and I and several members of the fire department traveled around the state and checked out a lot of the newer fire stations that have been built in the past 5 years. And they're all roughly around the same size for similar sized departments as us. They're roughly around the same size and same price point. So really what you're looking at is what is the general size of a fire station that's being built right now. And then ultimately we had to kind of discuss on where the station should go. And we wanted to be able to review as much as possible to present to you guys at least a recommendation on a possible site. The board did have a vote, and we voted that the Glenowitz Way site would be the preferred site between the two because the cost difference between the two sites was very small, and the Glenowitz Way site was a lot larger than the North School site. That provides a lot more opportunity for growth, for training, as opposed to putting the conceptual building as it is now on the North School site, which is kind of landlocked on that little island. There was very minimal parking if we try to put that building design on there. The study still is going on. The feasibility study is finished, but the committee still has a lot of work to review and discuss. And ultimately, we wanted to bring that information to you and let you know that at least we made a decision on that, and we're hoping that you guys can take the information and make a decision on what you'd like to do with it. The chief has been involved heavily with a lot of the stuff that we've done. He attended all of our committee meetings, and he has a lot of information that he'd like to put out as well. So, Chief, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Derek. Excellent report. There's a reason you're the chairman of this committee. And again, to the residents out there, there's a lot in this document. We looked at all aspects of this fire department. We looked at both stations to see, can we just rehab the stations we have? We looked at the response times from these stations and different weaknesses in the part of town that maybe we could correct that with a different location. And really what it comes down to is these two stations are simply too small. And it's not, we do maintain them. I want to emphasize that. They have been maintained, there's no question, as well as the equipment inside. We've simply outgrown them. And the size of the apparatus that we have these days, the number of the apparatus, we're operating 2 ambulances, which means we need 3 to really operate, because anytime one goes down, we have to have one ready to take its place. We do the same with the engines, with the availability. So all of these apparatus really need a place to be housed. And we are absolutely jam-packed in both stations, literally down to the inch, with trying to fit the apparatus in there. It's rather unsafe in some areas because you're literally squeezing past apparatus. When you try to take equipment in or out, we can certainly do it outside, but sometimes the weather prohibits that. The living quarters, again, we're simply, there's no room to grow. There's no physical place in either station to add a second restroom for male or female employees, to to add a new office to try to separate just some of the noise, if you will, that goes on with trying to do fire prevention meetings with different contractors or the residents, with setting up inspections, as well as just the regular day-to-day activity that goes on in any fire station, maintaining that shift. There's simply no room in the station to do it. In the land itself, there's not a lot of room to build into it. And if we did try to look at building into the stations, now we're opening up asbestos that's within the existing stations, and it's hidden. It's in the brick mortar, it's in the window caulking and in all those areas there. But if we begin opening that up, now we have to mitigate that. And that made that price skyrocket for the benefit that we would have got for a little bit more space. And even then, we're still not in great locations with both the Route 18 station, as everybody knows, the project going on out front with the expansion of Route 18 and the traffic. And Station 2, number 5 Rockland Street, that intersection is also busy. So we looked at numerous sites around town to see, all right, if we were to relocate a new station, we did not limit this to North School in Glenavich Way. We looked at a number of sites. We actually looked at Brockton Ave. The town owns land on the corner of Brockton Ave and High Street. It was formerly school land. It's really not buildable. It's very wet in there, and it's kind of a long, narrow stretch. It actually runs from High Street up behind diagonally to Walmart, ultimately ending out on Linwood and Mill Street. It really wasn't feasible to build on, and the response study from that location, it really is poor, to be honest with you, for most of the town, especially when we get into unknowns at Union Point, up at the old Naval Air Station, which we do own land up there. We don't know what's ultimately going to happen on that. We looked at the 700 block of Bedford Street in the corner of Bedford and Shore Ave. You know, we began looking at that. That looked attractive. However, that almost immediately sold, and there was another project going on at that point, so that wasn't available. Nothing would be better in my mind is if we were able to obtain the old Cape Cod lumber lot on Route 18. Now that's U-Haul, so that's really a done deal. I did try that a number of years ago prior to that selling. I think at the time, the town wasn't ready for that. We were really just entering into the school purchase with the new high school, middle school. So the timing was off, and they were ready to sell immediately. That would have been the ideal location, because that point is basically the geographic center of this town. And we did a response study from there, and we can hit most of the town with the least amount of a response time from that single location. That's one of the attractive features of the Glenavich Way site. The Glenavich Way site, is Derek indicated, it's the woods opposite the new high school. It's actually fairly deep in the woods, and there are some wetlands in there, and there's kind of almost an island in there that it's just enough that we could have an access road going in, and then the land itself that you could put the structure on there. There are pros and cons to both of these, both this and the North School site. Let me start with North School. I like the North School site, I'll be honest with you. However, it really is small. When we looked at the building that we came up with, and I'll explain in a moment where that building came from, because that was specifically sized for how we operate in Abington, both for our apparatus and personnel in the needs, the space needs that we have. That's where that building came from, and that's where the square footage of that building came from. When we tried to put that building on the North School site, there really is not much land around it for paving areas, which is parking. And certainly we need a lot of pavement in front of the apparatus bays to move the fire apparatus, but we also need to park personal vehicles, whether it's for the on-duty crew, and that doubles up every shift between the ongoing and the offgoing, as well as we really need a training room in this building. And if we're going to try to do training, we need to house those or park those vehicles for that. And we're not looking for a massive amount of numbers, but a realistic number of, maybe 50 cars for a class if we're going to do that with area towns or even just our own personnel. A modern fire station with a training room really needs the space to house the personnel, and they've all got to show up there in their personal vehicles. The North School was really, really limited for parking areas. The other issue that we had, one of the cons with the North School, is the traffic in that area. We have Plymouth and Birch, we have Plymouth and Adams, and then further downstream, if you will, Washington and Adams, where they estimated about 48% of all the responses probably would be responding through there. That's also a tight area. And theoretically, it can be taken care of with traffic lights. However, the physicality of it, you're still having intersections where vehicles collide. And with us trying to go through there, we were very cognizant of that. So really, it was the space limitations with that location, as well as just the roads around that were the limitations on that site. The response times from that site were actually pretty ideal, to be honest with you. They were fairly close to the Glenovich Way site, which I'll get into. We were actually surprised to see the response map from the North School, but the reality is, constantly going through those intersections, there were some concerns that we had. The Glenovich Way site is attractive because of there's more land there. There is land available in there. So for future needs, there would be no issue with the parking or training sites or what have you that as the department in town grows. The immediate limitations, obviously, it's in the woods. There is a question of the wetlands. We did begin somewhat of a study on that to make sure there's no surprises. And really, it's the access out. Now, once we're able to get onto Route 18 from that point, that's the best location in town for response times. The challenge, of course, is getting from a building there, going down Glenovich Way, which we know is crowded. Believe me, we see that. We know that 2 or 3 times, 4 times a day, that almost becomes impassable, which cannot be ignored. The short-term solution on that, realistically, could be to control the traffic lights. If we know that we're going out for a response, we can immediately control those lights. You're basically flushing out the traffic from Glenovich Way. We'd stop it where we're at, empty it out on Route 18 to clear that, and then we'd respond, and it will go back to normal. Long-term is we really should have an emergency access road, whether it parallels Glenovich Way going directly out, or maybe we put something behind it. There's challenges there. We're aware of that. However, long-term moving forward, that really did give us the best options of those 2 sites. A couple other sites in town, we're really limited with it. We've really built so much in this town that there are not a lot of 4-acre parcels, which is kind of the minimum that you need to build a structure like this. And it has to be within that geographic location of somewhat the center of town to be able to get places. We have to go up to Hancock Street, over to Green Street. Up in both of those locations, we can just go north on 18 and west on 139 Randolph Street to be able to do that, or south on 18 to get into the Brockton Ave, Green Street areas, or you can take a left up to Summer Street as we do now to go over to the eastern part of town, the Hershey Lanes and those developments over there. There's a lot of limitations in town where we could put this. So that's really why it came down to these 2 sites. And of these 2 sites, the committee, it was not unanimous, but the majority, and I'm not a voting member, but the majority decided Glenovich long-term really offered the town the best opportunities. It also kind of brings us into the fold of the town itself. We're always, headquarters up here on Route 18. It's not easy to get to. It's not really friendly. We're shut down right now because of the coronavirus anyway. There are no visitors, but even on a good day, the traffic is prohibitive. Station 2 is rather small to show, to have meetings or anything there. That's not where the administrative offices are anyway. So we'd really like to try to get back towards the core of Abington. Town hall, libraries there, the school's right there, all that activity. That's one of the pros. The cons is because of all of that extra activity, that creates traffic, and realistically, we have to be able to navigate through that. I think that there's opportunities. We could do it. They're certainly solvable. Short term, there's more challenges at that site.
Derek, can I ask you a question real quick? Do you want to just want to let people know who the members of your committee were? And because I know there was not controversy, but some people said it's stacked with firefighters, which was not the case. So you just want to mention, you give it to your members?
So our committee was a 5-member committee, which was chosen by your board toward the end of last year. And we made it specifically to have 2 firefighters and 3 residents of the town. And obviously we didn't want to stack the committee. That wasn't the case. But we did want to have firefighters on there because you should know a little bit about a fire station if you're going to be on a fire station committee. So you have myself as the chair. Wendy Happel is the secretary. Captain Jared Driscoll is a firefighter. He's on the committee. Jim Dabrowski and Roger Bodie. They make up the rest of the committee. But yeah, we definitely, it was a resident heavy committee. And although it wasn't, everybody on the committee has been in favor, or after visiting the fire stations became in favor of building a new fire station. And as the chief said, the vote to pick the Glenovitz Way site wasn't unanimous, but the majority was for that site. It is a unanimous opinion of the committee that a new fire station needs to be built.
I couldn't agree with you more. After Chief Nuttall's presentation before us was just amazing, and I mean, and anybody that wants to go up there and visit them, I'm sure you guys would be more than happy to show them around. But they're in some serious needs of, I'm not even going to say repair, they just need to be renovated completely. I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done there, and you guys have tried to keep up the best you can. It's the same story with the school. You know, at some point you have to give up and say we can't do it anymore. So I think it was a great. I'm cheap, so I'm a little concerned about the money it's going to cost, but we know that the buildings, you can't stand them much longer. So.
And we totally understand the cost too. I mean, it's an expensive building to build. It is, but it's not different than any of the other similar sized communities that have the similar sized fire stations that have been built recently are. It's not like it's more. The only catch with that is that we know as time progresses, these buildings don't get cheaper. They get more expensive to construct, which is why we wanted to take the opportunity to do this. But we started this fire station committee in this process for the feasibility study toward the end of last year, before the COVID-19 crisis hit us, which kind of put everything on a damper. That's why the study took a little longer to complete. We didn't have as much time as a subcommittee to really go over the feasibility study entirely, but we're working toward getting through it now. And we wanted to present it to you guys before town meeting discussion was talked about, but now with everything going on, anything could happen. But we wanted to at least keep you guys up to date and understand what was going on. And as you just mentioned, we would love to be able to show the community the fire station. We want people to come to see us, but right now that's just not possible. We're trying different things to try to get as much information out there. We're working with Kevin Tocci to try to do some video clips of what's going on in the fire station so we can try to get that information out to you. We're also working with the KBA, the company that did the feasibility study, on a website. It's not complete yet, but once it's done, the feasibility study will be on there. It'll have pictures and videos of the current fire stations that we're in, and we're going to try to get that out to social media and out to everybody in the public. So that way people can take a look and see what the study says, see what the current station looks like, see what some of the pictures, the videos that we've done, all the information about what we've done so far for the study, both internally at the fire station and for the fire station building committee. We're going to try to update that website and get it out to everybody. We also have more feasibility studies on order, so we can try to get some out to the public. I want to be able to get this information out there. The biggest thing was the purpose of trying to get this done, to get onto a town meeting if possible. Obviously, we would want to do it at a full quorum town meeting, is so we could give the residents a full presentation of everything that's going on. You really need to see the presentation like the chief had already presented before, plus the new updated things that have come up. KBA would also be able to come as well and be able to answer any of the questions. But we really want to get this information out there. It's a lot of information, but we want to get it out there so the residents can see the real need for it. It wasn't just a couple of firefighters on a committee that said we need a fire station. There's a real reason for this. That we, as the chief said, we have just simply outgrown the building, and it brings in some safety issues, and we really want to get that done.
If this had been a real meeting, the town hall would have been packed, and there would have been a lot of firefighters there and a lot of residents asking questions. It's tough because I've actually gotten a couple texts since the meeting started saying, how can we ask questions? Because with Zoom, you can't really ask questions. You can't invite the citizens because you'd have, we have the Brady Bunch right now, but it would go into 100 squares. It's tough. So How can people learn more about this? You talked about extra studies. Is there any way we can somehow, and I know it's a lot of, I think the most important things they want to know, and you guys know it too, is the cost, the pictures, the sites, maybe briefly take some of the documents and scan them and let people know, or do you guys have a website? Or, I mean, because people are going to have a lot of questions, and right now we're looking at faces, we're not looking at pictures of the plans or anything like that. So it's kind of tough. And you guys want to make sure that, if there's questions and if people have concerns about different things, that they're hearing the correct answer that's in the study or from you folks. So is there any way we can try to get that out to people?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's, like I said, there is a website that should be pretty much done. We're going to upload this entire study to it. And we're going to try to get that website out once it goes live. And we're going to try to update information on there as much as possible. We could always come back and do a full presentation with KBA, with a PowerPoint style presentation on Zoom. We were able to kind of do that with our committee, but for right now, we could definitely try to just get some of this information out there. Like you said, it'd be easy to get in front of town meeting, in front of everybody, and just answer all the questions live in person. But we know that that's not going to be possible right away. So
it's funny too, because when Sean brought up the idea about an outside town meeting, I didn't scoff it. I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool, but it would be but this might actually be something you could get a giant screen and just, if you want to come and learn, up at the bandstand, come on up. We'll give you popcorn and just come and watch our presentation. I mean, something to do on a summer night might be it sounds foolish, but you never know, way you get your side out there. How much did this study cost, Derek?
So the town appropriated $100,000 to get the study completed. You guys we voted on that last town meeting last year, and that was what was used. But we also received funds from State Representative Allison Sullivan. She was able to also get us some additional funds. I think it was $30,000. Mm-hmm. I don't believe we used. I think we used almost all of it for the study. That's through KBA. That wasn't really through the committee, but that was just to get the feasibility study done. But the town appropriated $100,000 for the study.
So it cost 130, or it cost 100, or?
Chief, correct me if
I'm wrong. It was about 130. Most of the there was an additional study that went into this. We really focused on that response time study, and that ate up most of the additional funds that went with that. And there's been a couple of smaller additional studies with this as well. Sure. Some structural issues at the station that they subcontracted out, and we're also looking at a soil sample study going on now, just to kind of get an idea where that's going. That's kind of come to a stop, but so the total funds were spent.
It's a very, very and I hate to be talking about the study because nobody can see it, but it's very, very comprehensive. I mean, and it really surprised me, because I honestly thought, and I talked about this, I thought the newest school was going to be a shoo-in. I really thought that's where it was going to go. So when they came up with this second location, I was very surprised. I knew that land was there. We actually talked about some of that land for dog park, so it's probably a good thing that we put the dog park there. The study actually recommends the North School because of the response time. Correct?
Yeah. So, I can answer it really quick if you want. It does recommend the North School site based off of the immediate setup, because North School right now has direct access right off of the property. The response study that was done is coming from the Route 18 section at the end of Glenovich Way on Route 18. It doesn't really take into factor an additional study of how we would get to and from. Those are just some things that the committee has been talking about with KBA, but that response study was done prior to the conversations with KBA and the committee about trying to find an egress way for the apparatus to leave the Glenovich Way site.
Mr. Chairman, I feel like I'm hogging this. Can I ask a few more questions and then I'll be done?
Can
Pass it on.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I interrupt you?
Yep.
Because I want to ask the chief a couple of questions, or even Derek. As you probably all know, the price tag is, people have been looking at that, and I've been getting stuff on Facebook and everything else too, that, but that is what it is. Chief, I thought I heard you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there really wasn't much difference between the price, whether it's at North School or whether it's on Glenavich Way. Did you say that, or?
I think Derek did, but Derek, I can answer this if you don't mind. The main difference in the closeness of these costs are because Glenavich Way, we don't have to remove the building. And prior to removing that building, we have to mitigate all the asbestos in that building. That's really where that cost is coming from, the additional cost at North School.
Okay, and I appreciate that, because I think, as Ken is saying, we're not doing this publicly right now. We're on Zoom. Hopefully the people are watching and listening, and I do think there are some questions that we have to ask. And I don't know, I'm going to ask this question. I don't know if you can answer it, or the town owns the North School property. Glenavich Way, who owns Glenavich Way, do you know?
Yes, we do. There's a gentleman that owns that property. He's owned it for a long time. I know that he had been contacted previously by the chief and by Rick when he was here. And I've even reached out to him and spoke to him. And he was willing to sell the property. So that's what made that site attractive. It wasn't the initial site, as the chief said earlier. Going into this, everyone had a thought that the North School was going to be the main site that people were going to look at during the feasibility study. But the Glenavich Way site became more appealing when the size of it was noticed and that ability for it to be purchased was secured.
Okay, so we'd have to purchase Glenavich Way. That property.
Yes. And that's actually factored into the study's budget.
Right now.
Yes.
That could change, correct? Derek, do you think, I mean, you could say it won't, but it might. It could change, correct?
Oh, anything could change.
Right. And I appreciate you saying that. And I'm just trying to get this information out to people that are either going to, email Ken or email me or one of the other selectmen. One of the other questions that I do have is, and Chief Nuttall, I know that you've probably gone over this and I might have missed it in the report, and I've read a lot. I mean, I've read almost the whole thing, but going out past, the town hall and the library, there was talk about, and I don't know, this probably isn't involved in the cost, but having some sort of extension road to go out there to get up to, Broad Meadow, areas up there. Can you just respond to that if you don't mind?
Sure. I know that there's a sewer easement up there that the town owns, and I know the width on that would be sufficient for fire apparatus, theoretically. A lot would have to be done with that. Obviously, it would have to be developed and paved. And even if it was only for emergency vehicles, that is another possible location that would be attractive to that site. That's another feature. There's a lot of what ifs, certainly with the Glenavich Way. And to be honest with you, the North School came in right behind it. They're pretty close, but it tipped towards Glenavich. And again, all these concerns and questions come up. And to be honest with you, I would probably suggest don't get rid of the North School site just until we know where the town decides what they want to do with this, just in case. If I could briefly talk to just on on the numbers, on the size of the structure that they estimated these numbers from, as well as the numbers, because we're not trying to hide any of this. We're trying to get the town, rightfully so, the residents need to have a very in-depth conversation on this, tear this apart, come up with ideas, see what they say. The building that they are proposing on here, how that came about was we did a lot of meetings with a fire station architect in upstate New York, basically by Zoom. And we designed the structure room by room, specific for the needs of the Abington Fire Department. And that is based on the size and the number of the apparatus that we currently have, as well as the anticipated just the size of growth for apparatus in the future, as well as the number of personnel that we have now per shift, as well as in anticipation of any future growth, should there be some, 10, 20, 30 years from now. That also included administrative offices that we simply don't have. It included training facilities, which is just a training room, which could also be an emergency operations center, that we simply do not have right now for the fire department. All of the other decon rooms, we have no space in the stations now. We really should be storing all of the firefighters' protective clothing, the fire gear, the helmets, the coats, the boots, because they're all off-gassing chemicals after a fire, as well as now the whole, it's always been there for us anyway, the biological concerns that we have to decon them. We simply have no places in these buildings right now to deal with any of that. They're literally going on a hook on the wall in the apparatus floor or in the living space, which we try not to do. So we built this station room by room. We literally made, it looks like a puzzle with all of the pieces. And then they take those pieces and they put it together in the most economical and efficient building they could do. Could we shorten the footprint on this? Certainly, but now we're going up 3 floors, and that presents other problems, and that gets expensive as well. The apparatus floor, it is what it is. There's minimum requirements that are supposed to be around fire apparatus and ambulances to safely walk around. There's supposed to be floor drains in them. We don't have those. All of this is built into that. We're also combining 2 stations into one. It's not simply just you take station 2, you take station 1, you stick them together. How big is that? Well, that does us no good because they're too small to begin with. And that's really not going to change anything. So we try to design a building which fits the needs of Abington immediately, to make it a safe and effective and efficient building, as well as any anticipating needs in the future, because we certainly don't want to have to add on to this 20, 40 years from now, if we can avoid it in the initial costs.
Chief, just one question. I'm sorry, and I want you to get back to that.
Yep.
In the design, you're not adding other departments to that design at this time, are you?
I want to address that. In the feasibility study, there is a menu. At one point, to be honest with you, before we saw the cost of their overall project, we strongly considered adding the building and the building department and the Board of Health in this building. A couple of reasons. We work very close with them on a day-to-day basis with both of those departments. And we thought if we were able to incorporate them into a fire department facility, that would free up space at the existing town hall. So there's a menu of certain buildings as well as the cost features on this, with one that includes everything: the fire department, the building department, and the Board of Health at both locations, at both North School and Center School. And those are factored in as one cost. We also factored in the building without those. So it's strictly the fire department, which reduced that by a couple of $1 million. The third one is we've kind of shrunk the building down somewhat with more hallway space, and we kind of get into some of the economic features of trying to value engineer the building even tighter to reduce the cost somewhat, which reduced it a little bit more. Realistically, I'm assuming they're going to go for the lowest cost on any of this, which why wouldn't they? But it's still worth looking at all of these. And it's also very important to understand on the cost on these, and I'm going to tell you what the costs are. There's the construction cost, and then there's the project cost. The construction cost, the cheapest ones at this point, we're looking at either $20 or $21 million for either, whether it was the North School site or the Golanowitz Way. That is to simply construct the building. And I'm throwing big numbers out there, and I'm very cognizant of that. This is real money. I am a taxpayer resident. Mm-hmm. We all pay. This is everybody's money in town. This is your money. This is everybody's money. I get that 100%. And which is why we're presenting this now. First of all, it's part of the feasibility study to come up with this, but you also need to know what it is, because without telling you what the costs are on this, if nothing's done for another 5 or 10 years, it doesn't solve our issues. But now the cost is going to increase that much more the longer we wait. The economy is what it is. I understand it. I understand the residents that we're all very concerned as to what's going on. We're not blind to that by any means. The timing is, we have to let you know what the feasibility study says. We are cognizant of what the economy is. That is the construction cost. The total project cost is basically adding $10 million onto that. So we're looking at basically a $30 million project. And that additional $10 million per site, regardless of the site, because they're both very close. Now you're getting into the equipment cost in the building. You're looking at there's some, land, certainly the land, the site work, furnishings, the computer components, all of the electronics that go into the building, the communications tower and the communications array, all of that is. Then you get into the architectural renderings are part of that. You get into all of the different fees, and there's quite a breakdown where exactly all of these dollar figures come to get to that bottom line total project cost. I know that, we may see, what other fire stations may cost, and they're probably closer to the $20 million range, but they may not be including that total project cost. The firm that we use, KBA, we wanted to make sure that there were no surprises on this. We've used this firm in town before. They're the ones that did the police station. They did the feasibility study, and I believe the architectural drawings for the police station 12 or however many years ago. So that, the town has used them. And most, but not all, of the fire stations that we toured in Plymouth and Norfolk and Bristol counties also used this firm. Because we didn't want to get into apples and oranges, although we are looking at everything that was out there. Most of the recent ones that we saw that were comparable to Abington, not every town, Hyannis is not Abington, they're much larger, but that was one of their very large projects that they did. But we did, Mansfield, Plainville, Randolph, some of the other communities in this area, Carver, even though that's a unique department, that are combination fire EMS departments, because that's the other thing you can't ignore. Some fire departments do not operate an ambulance. They're not cross-trained firefighter paramedics, nor do they have the space needs for those ambulances, as well as all of the EMS needs, the stalking, the decon, and all that. So we tried to really keep this close to fire departments and demographics that are fairly close to Abington.
Thanks, Chief. And believe me, I appreciate the work that you've done and Derek and his committee has done. And I think one thing that the residents realize is we need a fire station. We need one that's not two. And I've looked at the buildings, and I don't know how you guys survive. And I give you a lot of credit, and especially during this pandemic, you guys know that I and probably a lot of other people really appreciate that. I want you to know that. But any other selectmen want to ask a question? And Chief, I appreciate you answering my questions.
And I think the last thing too, again, just
about the connector corridor behind the library, being on the Conservation Commission, that did come up, and it's not just an easy, let's pave it over and move on. There's a hydrological connection that runs left to right, so to speak. There would be a couple of bridges that would have to be built there that would have to be able to handle the weight of the tower truck. I'm also concerned about the site on Glenowitz Way. You're going to put a lot of impervious surfaces there, the roof, the parking lot. That storm water, that when it rains, has to go somewhere, and you can't just shed it off into other people's property. So there may have to be a retention basin of some sort there. And if you don't have the room there, it may go out. It may have to go underground, which is possible. But then again, you got to take into consideration the weight of the tower truck driving over it. How much weight does that hold? There's been a lot of good points brought up by everybody here, and I kind of want to touch on a lot of them. As a firefighter, I thought the North School would be a great site, but now that I see it, there's not much apron to do your daily maintenance on the trucks. And that Birch Street intersection, absolutely, there'd have to be a light there that you control. That's a dangerous site. That's a dangerous intersection as it is. As for a Zoom meeting, since I came home from Florida, I've been watching the council meetings in Sebastian, Florida, and they have their council meetings is equivalent to our selectmen meeting, and there've been 300 people there. They put the main players up on the screen, and everybody else is handled by a moderator. And if somebody has a question, they can raise their hand, and the moderator can pipe them into the meeting to ask their question. It is possible to have a Zoom meeting with 300 to 400 people. Glenowitz Way site, I've spoken about that, and a lot of people don't understand too. 30, 40 years ago, Chief, you'll understand, guys got hurt on the job, and they were physical hurt. They were broken bones, et cetera, et cetera. And nowadays, the health concerns are much more important. As a guy who survived cancer, and now that there's a presumptive bill for the small towns, you know, one guy gets cancer. I was a $2 million bill to the city of Boston. I don't know if the town of Abington could handle that. So we need to make sure that building has a decon room. We need to make sure they have the facilities to take care of themselves and to make sure it's a healthy building overall. I understand that. I don't know if the general public understands that, but that is a big concern to the taxpayer. One guy gets cancer, and it's a big bill. It's a big, big bill. We want to avoid that if we can.
I can answer something to that if you like, Jim. That every single one of these buildings that we went to visit, all these newer fire stations are built with it's almost a mandatory hot to cold corridor where there's no way to get from an apparatus or the apparatus bay or a contaminated site coming back from a fire or coming back from a hazmat situation. There's no way to go from that hot area, that hot zone, to the cold zone without going through this decon corridor. And
I understand.
Every single one of the stations that we went through had that. There's no way to bring the contaminants from what we bring back to the station into the administrative or living quarters side of the building.
And eventually back to home too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's obviously all that everybody comes home with. Even now, we've even taken more precautions now where people don't wear their uniforms home just because of the things that are going on. We've taken extra steps, and to be quite honest, it's been a pretty big challenge for us to meet because our apparatus bay, and many of you already know because you've been there, is one door away from the living quarters and the day room and our training room, the kitchen, the chief's office. Every single part of the building touches that apparatus floor. There is no separation whatsoever.
That's important. That's very important. I mean, I've been in the headquarters. I mean, we can talk shop. We got a Plymouth vent system there. Back in the days, you light up that fire truck and you're blowing diesel fumes right into the kitchen. You have to avoid that now. As a firefighter, I didn't like the North School because of how tight it was. As a taxpayer, I don't like the price. As an ex-Conservation Commission, I think you're going to run into some issues on Glenowitz Way. I think they can be worked through, but you have to be aware. I mean, if you have to put a retention pond underground, it could get expensive. It really could. And I just don't know where you're going to put it or how you're going to put it, but it's all workable. I think Glenowitz Way would be the best choice.
Jim, if I could just real quick too, something that you said, the corridor, the sewer easement going up to West Abington, that was not part of this study. We did not look at that in depth. It's a theory. We know it's there, but I honestly don't know if that's even buildable. You know, I know that there's been talk of that. I've heard that the last 20 years. We didn't really get into the study on that. We didn't look into that deeply, to be honest with you. But.
Yeah, that came up when the sewer line went in. They came in front of the conservation then.
Yeah.
I know there's at least two spots where there is water flow from left to right. I don't know if it's north or south, but it's left to right. Looking at the library from left to right, you can't impede the water flow. You have to allow it to continue. And there is a lot of wetlands up there. There would be at least one, possibly two bridges that we'd have to put in there, not just a culvert. It's that big. But
Believe me,
yeah.
if somebody could find me land in the geographic area that we're talking in that range, you know, that's about 4 acres large enough to put this, I would be thrilled. If we could take U-Haul, if U-Haul decided to sell again, that is the ideal location and size. It's not available. And that's really why we're limited to this. I mean, nothing would make, I think, us happier and to save more money than to try to find a different site. We looked everywhere. We looked at a lot of parcels of land. It's simply not available large enough. And real quick, too, if I could just say, again, coming up with this building, we're not building a Taj Mahal. We're not trying to come up with some massive elaborate. We literally built it room by room, as I explained, based on modern fire department needs. And the cost of that is whatever that square footage is. The way they come up to the overall cost, it's the going rate of the, and it's a municipal rate, I believe, of the average cost per square foot. And right now it's through the roof. A lot of it because of all the construction going on in Boston. If this was, 10 years ago, this probably would be half what we're proposing, if not more. In the future, I can't tell you what it's going to be, but in general, they don't tend to go down unless we get into some type of depression. Maybe the feds will fund it as another CCC project like North School and Center School was back then. But hopefully for everybody's sake, that doesn't happen. So that's where these costs are coming from. It's the square footage was determined on our needs, and the cost per square foot is based on a formula that the cost estimators use in the area for what the going rate is on construction. That's how these figures came from. To be honest with you, the sticker shock with us, we had it as well. The residents are definitely going to get sticker shock on this. It's what the going rate is for this type of a modern municipal building. I wish we could cut this in half, if not thirds. Believe me, I do, and still have a functional building. Ultimately, it's up to the voters.
Any other questions for the chief or Derek?
I've got a couple more if I could. This property on Glen Oaks Way is landlocked, so I'm assuming that's why you think you can get it at a pretty reasonable price. Is that what I'm guessing, or you must have talked to the money?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Again, as we spoke, as Derek said earlier to Tom, it's, anything could change. And obviously as the value, the demand for something goes up, so does the value. That wasn't the sense we were getting. We can't guarantee it.
No, I understand. I think the biggest concern that I think people are going to have, maybe I'm wrong, is getting in and out of there. Now, you look at the map, and people will see it eventually, hopefully sooner rather than later. Is there an option to go behind Lowe's or beside Lowe's? I think Derek mentioned to me maybe in the future down between the bowling alley and the senior housing, a separate lane, different ideas for the future. Obviously, immediately you want to probably use the high school road, but are there any options for roads down there?
We also looked at cutting into Fair Street, but we didn't go too deep into that because we don't own that land. I think we have to look at the Fair Street condominiums, and it might be down to what those buildings are. And that's a quicker way to do it because Fair Street's right there, the Fair Street loop, right behind Lowe's.
So that's things you look at in the future, probably, if it was to go through there. Did anybody look, I think it might be too small, but where the highway barn is, there's enough land there, or probably not, or talk about maybe,
The location there is tough for the response times. That's the problem, because we have to, even though it's up the street from North School, we'd be able to get up to West Abington, but you shoot right up 139, basically. From the, Central Street, now we have to go up either further up 58 and then to get to 139, or up Washington Street and down by Trukey's to get up to 18 to go up to 139. It really did add several minutes to that response time. And those minutes add up quick.
This format that we're having tonight, unfortunately, it leaves a lot of questions unanswered. So like I said before, hopefully you can get your study out there so people can see it and, post your, if people have questions, please contact Chief Nuttall or Derek, and I'm sure that, as you can see tonight, they've been more than happy to answer your questions. So I commend you guys on the great job you've done. So thank you.
And again, we're trying to get this entire study on the website, as Derek said. I know they're working on that. Ironically, because of the coronavirus, even KBA, they've all been working from home. And that's, this should have been done months ago. This really is one of the reasons it took a little bit longer than it should have. And that was one of the challenges they were having, was getting that site up.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you guys. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I assume we'll
Thank
have you back in the near future, hopefully, when more of us can get together and ask questions. But we'll have you back for a few, look at another update soon.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do.
I guess my question also would be, are you folks probably thinking about putting something in for town meeting if it gets to the point, if you're able to go over your plans with everybody in town, you think, you will see an article at town meeting, or you think you'll hold off?
Here's where we're at, and again, as I prefaced it earlier with, we're not blind to the economy. We get it. We're kind of down if we do, we're down if we don't. If we don't, at least tell people and give them a chance, to act on this one way or the other. While this price is what it is now, and I'm not minimizing that price whatsoever. If we don't do that now, and if this goes on a couple of years, whatever, if this price at that point is higher, much higher, we just want to avoid, well, why didn't you tell us what it was back then? So that's kind of the quandary that we're in. So I guess as the board, we'd be dumping this on your lap.
Thank you.
But being able to present at town meeting, if the ability was there to present it to everybody and have an open forum with questions, that's what we really would like to do, because there is a lot of information here, and I know people have questions. It's just right now it's very difficult to do. So we're going to try to get this out as best we can. But if we were able to get onto town meeting, at least it gives us the opportunity to give a full presentation that we could do more of a Q&A with, as opposed to just coming back. And even though I'd like to come back for another meeting and be able to do a full presentation with KVA, it'd be nice to do a town meeting where you can have that back and forth and answer the residents' questions.
Or even not a town meeting, prior to that, and I know they did this with the school and some of the other projects, just a general meeting, a question and answer, for the community. Ironic, right now it's difficult to do that. We can't do that. Otherwise, we would have had this going on. We would have filled, an auditorium or whatever, just to make that available for questions and answers. So even, once, if this does get to a town meeting, prior to that, I think we'd be doing a lot of question and answers with the residents, because they're going to have questions. Of course they are. They should. We want to show them the entire thing and make sure that they know those answers going into any type of a vote, should it get to that.
I've been around for most of these new buildings in town, and I probably even voted against a couple of them. But I mean, there's always that sticker shock when it first happened.
Yeah.
The new school, the police. I was probably one of the biggest proponents of a joint town hall library. I was not happy they were separate buildings, but eventually people see the need and they see the benefit. So we'll see what happens. Further down the road. But I think right now, a lot of people, you agree, there's sticker shock, and there's more questions now than there are answers. But when the time comes to vote, hopefully everybody will have the answers they need. Sound like a politician. Geez.
All right, Ken, you're out of questions.
Yes, I'm.
All right, guys, thank you very much. I suggest you logging out before Kenny realizes he has more questions.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Derek.
Thanks for your
Thank
time.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you both. I really appreciate you taking the time.
And thank you to the committee.
Okay, next up is the town manager report. Mr. Lambiase.
All right, well, as we mentioned earlier, town hall is open. Regular hours, 8:30 to 4:30. All offices are open and staffed. We do have, some restrictions and some requirements for folks who are visiting town hall. Anybody who does come into town hall, there'll be someone there to greet and direct you. We have hand sanitizer available and we have masks available. So we request that everybody wears their mask when they're coming in and doing their business. We're still, we want everybody to know that you can still do everything online or by mail or by phone, but it is open and you are welcome to come in. We ask you to, limit the amount of people who are coming in, just kind of come in and do your business. We just want to make sure that we have it safe and clean and safe for everybody coming in and the people that work there. There is voting, so if you do want to come in and use the absentee ballot, you can come in. The town clerk will be there. They'll answer your questions. And hopefully some of you have already tried it and come in and done it, and you know it's a very simple experience. We have placed shields up in front of all the windows in town hall, so when you do go up to any of the counters, there are protective devices there also. Library is open for curbside pickup, and as Ken mentioned, they did have I guess we probably didn't catch it, but I think on the news, Channel 4 came down and do a little segment on it, so that was kind of nice. But if you do want to get a book, reserve a book, call the library, or you can email them, and then they'll give you a window of time that you can come and get it. You just pull up, call from your phone when you get out front, and run the book out to you. So we're still working on expediting outdoor seating for restaurants. We're getting a lot of calls, and you know, pretty much everybody is anticipating that when the next phase, when the governor goes to his next phase of opening up the Commonwealth, they'll probably stop by allowing outdoor seating only, a very limited capacity if they're going to open up the inside. That being said, not everybody has outdoor seating, or the capacity that they have in their outdoor seating will be so minimized that they, you know, it's still very difficult for them to make ends meet. Typically, if you wanted to do something like that, you would be required to go in front of the planning board and or zoning board. And then eventually you would end up in front of the Board of Selectmen to ask for permission for the liquor license. You'd also have to apply with the, you know, the ABCC for what they call an alteration of premises, because you're changing the defined area where you're allowed to serve alcohol. So I have been in contact with ABCC. I've been in contact with our representatives up in the State House and Town Council and the Planning Board. So it looks like there is legislation out there, and it seems to be moving fairly quickly, that would allow the local licensing authority to allow for this. So it wouldn't have to be the major hearing that you would typically have for something like this, and they wouldn't have to necessarily wait for the process with the ABCC, which would really streamline it. What we're contemplating is, and I'm going to have a conversation with the planning board chair tomorrow, is that the planning board can have a meeting to discuss offering up a blanket, a waiver for this. And it will only be, you know, it'll have a sunset on it. It'll be until the end of the pandemic. But basically what I'm envisioning is where they can come in to meet with the various department heads, the fire chief, the police chief, the health director, and, you know, the building commissioner, myself, and we can look at whatever their plan is. They can bring us a site plan. So we want to do outdoor seating in such and such an area. This is what we're going to do about parking. This is what we're going to do about accessibility to bathrooms. This is what we're going to do to protect them and to segregate the area. Once they come up with a plan that's acceptable to us, we're going to bring it to you. I'll bring it to you, and hopefully in a package deal that I'm going to say, here's the list of restaurants that are looking to do this. All the public safety officials and the health officials, we have all looked for it. We recommend that you approve it, you know, with certain restrictions. And the restrictions will be, you know, probably no outdoor music, you know, probably close everything up by, you know, 9 or 10 o'clock, depending on, you know, what the sense of the board is, stuff like that. But, you know, we're really trying to get this done. We've got, you know, a short amount of time to sort of figure it out, because I want to give the restaurant owners enough time that they can prepare for it too and give us a plan. So I think we're getting closer to it. Hopefully I'll have a plan to give you next week and say, this is what we're doing. This is how it's going to work. And maybe on the 8th, we'll have that list of establishments that want to do this. So we made a lot of headway on that, and I think it's good. It's you know, it's kind of positive. It just want to see these folks get back out there and, you know, get to work. And you know, I think we all want to have a place to go and grab a burger or something someday, right? Or a pizza.
Pizza.
Let's see. We've been I did have a Zoom meeting with the Plymouth County Commissioners. So regarding the COVID relief money. So they've opened up a portal, and there is a way that we can go in there and they just sort of doing the first round now that we can put anything in before the end of the fiscal year that we have COVID related expenses. I haven't had a chance to sit down with Sue and go over what our dollar amount is at this point. But we're obviously going to jump on that and just see what we have in there. We also want to, explore any other options that we have before we exhaust any of that money. There's right now in the first phase of it, they call this, there's $723,000 earmarked for Abington. So, we'll see where that goes. And even though, so we did receive a notice this week, or last week, from the South Shore Visiting Nurse Association. What that is, that's they supply us with a public health nurse. And as you can imagine, that's been pretty important to have right now. Basically, a public health nurse is one who follows up on any communicable type diseases like we have now, when there's flu outbreaks, COVID outbreaks, could be, complaints that maybe it would be food poisoning at one particular place that we have to trace and try and find out where and when it happened. So they're done June 30th. And this is something that's been going on, all the cities in the area and the towns in the area. Matter of fact, it was sort of on the top of my to-do list when I left Duxbury. So we have posted and we are taking applications. We're going to have to hire a part-time public health nurse. Luckily, we have the money that we otherwise would be paying to South Shore VNA anyway. So it's not it's money that's budgeted and funded. So we'll be doing that. Luckily, we did get some people who are interested already. Jim, were you waving?
And my wife.
You trying to get her some work?
No, I'm trying to wave her out of the room.
Trying to get a drink.
Good luck with that. Let me know how that works out for you, Jim.
It's almost empty. Is the meeting almost over?
I couldn't tell if you were telling me to hurry up or if you had
No.
Let's stop playing
off.
off.
She got me in trouble.
But yeah, that's all the news I have for tonight.
That's a great thing for business though, to get them, streamlined,
As
getting them
easy as possible.
Yeah, we want to make it as painless. I mean, it's difficult because a lot of the rules are, our bylaws are bylaw, and as much as I would love to say we'll just ignore it, that just doesn't work for anybody. It's just a bad plan. And then the alcohol laws are all set in statute. So unless I get a blessing from ABCC, again, we can't ignore it because, if something bad was to happen, we'd all be in trouble. So I think everybody wants it to work. Everybody wants it to happen. So I think we'll make it happen. I think we'll find a way and it'll work out. And that's it.
Anything else for the town manager, guys?
What?
Anything else for the town manager?
Tom, did you absentee vote today?
Well, you know what? I want to mention a couple of things, but I wanted you to finish your report. I did vote today at town hall. It was awesome. It was quick. It was simple, easy. The staff there, of course, always helping out. But no, it was very good. I got out of the way. I'm going to be around. I'm going to help out on when are we having the election? 23rd? 23rd. So I'll be around on the 23rd to do that stuff. But yeah, voting today was awesome. Can you, I heard Scott say, you mentioned something about the library. Did you read the thing from Debbie Brimmett, or did you just?
Yeah, I touched upon it, and I just said that people happy, and Channel 4 was down recording it, so it was a great service. So.
Yeah, okay, because I was going to mention that too. And we had one too from, hold on one second, I want to look something up. And I don't think we do this enough, and you know, we certainly get it as, you know, notice, but we got a notice today about the DPW, and I'm just going to take a minute to read it, if you guys don't mind. So, and this went to the Director of Public Works for the town of Abington. You recently constructed a catch basin and drain in the wetlands at our property at 300 Walnut Street. There has always been a water issue on the street in front of our property whenever it rains. We are writing to tell you that a fantastic job was done by your workers, and they worked hard doing the task at hand. We just wanted to commend your department and thank you. From Richard and Maureen Wall. Sometimes we forget to do that, I think. We get the memos, but I'd like to commend the DPW and the work that they did. And, I wanted them to know that, so thank you for that. I think I'm all done. I voted, like I said, and it's easy.
Anybody have anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Can I? Sorry. Do we want to take a sense of our board as to a quorum, or we just want to talk about it at the next? Cause seemed like Sean was looking for a sense of the board. You know, as a number, or we can just talk about it at the next meeting. It doesn't matter to me, but.
If you mean whether we want to lower the quorum or not, yeah, I'm all for it. What the number is, we can hash it out later and take a vote on it.
Well, that's going to be in what Sean writes up to us to vote on Monday. So we need to get to Sean before Monday.
On June 1st, right?
Back up a little.
The actual vote you'll take the vote on the 8th to lower the.
8th, okay.
So we discuss it next week and vote on the 8th.
Yeah, you're welcome to discuss it. You can definitely, you know, Sean would like obviously a sense of the board. I think, you know, I mean, I've heard 30 and 50, and to be quite honest with you, I don't think there's any harm in 50. I think, you know, you're likely to get at least 70 people there would be my guess, but you know, and again, we're going to make accommodations to get as many people in there, and if we have to, we'll put them in the other room. So, yeah, it's whatever you guys feel comfortable with.
I'm fine with 50. I mean, to Ken's point, it'll make the residents more comfortable that we're allowing enough people in there, and we're not turning anybody away. I want to make that real clear because people are going to assume that that's our thought, but that's not. We're not.
No, and like I said, I mean, we'll do everything to accommodate as many, but I guess like he did say that if we do get 150, then, you know, he'll probably just postpone.
We'll recess and we'll come back outdoors.
To go outside.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be shocked if we got it's tough for us to get 150 on a good year with no rain.
Yeah.
And nice weather. We're usually waiting for 150. So I'd be shocked if we got 150, but I'd be happy. And if that's the case, I'll be happy to recess and
yeah, I know.
Hopefully we don't come back and only have 30, you know?
I know.
My only concern is we have enough citizens, residents there, equal or more than the politicians.
I think, right. And that's a good point. I think 50's safe.
Yeah.
And Jim, it's not just the politicians. You have to remember that there are a lot of department heads, and I want them in there too. But there are people that work for departments too that are residents of Abington. So, you know, I think we'll have enough. I really do. That's what I think. But that's
Okay.
it.
So the sense
Did you guys vote on the doing the election, changing the times or anything. I came in late and I apologize for that. So.
How can we bring this back up?
Yes, it was a vote.
It was
Went
a
2-2.
vote.
I think the only way you can bring it up is those that were in favor of it. Is it Ken?
Those who are the prevailing party, which would be either Tim or Kevin, can bring it back up if they want to allow you to vote. But me and Ken lost out on the vote, so we can't bring it back up.
Since it's the same day, Jim, a motion to reconsider, anybody can make a motion to reconsider. Should we have gone like to our next meeting, then a motion to rescind would have to be made by somebody in the party that voted in the affirmative.
Yeah, that jogged my memory. I remember. Well,
so a motion to reconsider at this point can be made by anybody.
I'll make that motion to reconsider, so give Tom the opportunity to vote.
So Jim makes a motion to reconsider the vote on the time of town elections. Do I have a second?
I can't second it, right?
No, sir.
Okay. Thought I'd ask.
I'll second it, I guess.
Okay, we have a motion to reconsider and a second. All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'll vote aye to let Tom vote. Let Tom get his say in. So now we'll bring back up the motion to discuss the town clerk's suggestion to adjust hours of town election to 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
I think Ken amended that to, what was your original motion? Was it 10 to 7?
My motion was 10 to 7, just to leave an extra hour since it's a Tuesday night. And Leanne still gets to come in a little later because they're gonna have to set up from the night before. So that was the reasoning there. You know, if it was a Saturday, I'd just say 10 to 6 is fine. But I just figured we should leave it, get a little bit
So
of coming from work.
that's correct, Tom. The motion is 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the vote. Do you have
Okay.
Any discussion?
Do I need
No.
a second again?
Was that?
Somebody saying something?
Yeah, do I need to second the motion again, or we just go to the vote?
Well, you can, now that we've reconsidering the motion now, so we'll discuss it and we can vote. It's already been
I think-
moved and seconded.
Again, I'll bring up what I said. I mean, I think it's 8 to 6. Leanne had said 10 to 6, then 10 to 7 was brought by Ken. I think we're throwing too many hours out here. I think we keep it exactly what it was, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Let's not confuse people anymore. It's already changed from a Saturday to a Tuesday. We have early voting. We have absentee voting. There's plenty of avenues to vote. I think we keep the original 8 to 6 so we don't confuse the residents, and we give them plenty of time as well. Again, because like Ken had said at the previous meeting, limiting hours, more people into a smaller time frame is not good. So that's my take. That's my discussion on it.
I agreed, Tom. I agreed with Kevin's points, and I also added the fact that if we're worried about the poll workers' safety, which I assume we all are, we should probably try to recruit more volunteers and maybe have the poll workers working shifts, so they work 4 hours or two, whatever they feel comfortable with, but not to put that at an unnecessary risk, but at the same time, keep it from 8 to 6, the times the people are used to voting in their local election.
Right. And Ken, I'm going to assume that you wanted it to from 10 to 7. One, given a little bit of safety because there could be a town meeting the day before, and the other being people coming out of Boston or coming, I shouldn't even say Boston, that have to get home, has that opportunity to do that up to 7 o'clock.
Right, because it's a regular working day now rather than a weekend. So that's yes, exactly. Tom.
Yeah, we lose the morning hours, but we give them the opportunity after 5, after supper, to come down and vote. That's what they wish to do.
Right. Kevin, were you going to say something?
I was just gonna say, add into that. I mean, I don't know how many people are going to be back at work, in the next 4 weeks, especially with the governor's orders as well. But just for reference, it was been, I think, over 100 people have already early or absentee voted. Well,
Well,
so well, yeah.
well, no, this is a tough choice, and I'm glad that you guys reconsidered it. But I think I'd have to go with Tim and Kevin, and just leave it from 8 to 6. That would be my vote.
All right, so I guess just to make it official, all those in favor of Ken's motion to make the election from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's 2. All those opposed signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's 3. So 2 to 3, the motion does not pass. Town elections will be June 23rd. That is a Tuesday at Emerald Hall from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Thank you, and thank you,
Hey,
Tom.
sorry, guys.
Thanks for voting, Tom.
So if that is all, I will now accept the motion.
So,
And made it, didn't he?
so wait, the sense of the board is 50? Warren?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm happy. I'm fine with that.
I see 1, 2, 3. Kevin, Tom, do you think 50 is okay? Or?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I know there's residents that are also on the boards, but I'd like to see an equal amount of just residents there, as opposed to resident board members as well. So 50, I think, would be a good number.
Yeah, I want to go to 0, as you all know, but I'll go with 50 is fine with me.
Okay, Sean's probably watching, so 50, Sean. Right? I mean,
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion to adjourn?
Just quick discussion. Tim, thank you for running the meeting tonight. I really appreciate it. Sorry I had computer trouble, but I'm in favor of adjourning.
All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That is for the first time tonight, I believe. Unanimous.
Unanimous vote.
Good night, guys.